So welcome to the first session of Graduate Schemes Week, which is taking place all this week and is a programme of online and face-to-face support for anyone considering, exploring, researching, preparing for or applying for graduate schemes. So this is our first session and it's called A to Z of Graduate Schemes. It will be recorded, so if you would like to listen back to it, it'll be on the Careers Service YouTube channel within a couple of days. So we've got just over an hour together today until 1:15, but we do have a lot to do in that time. And this session is going to, or aims to, provide you with a greater understanding of what graduate schemes are, awareness of the other types of employers that are general types of employers that offer graduate scheme opportunities across a variety of sectors. It also aims to provide you with knowledge of how to find graduate scheme opportunities, as well as tips on how to successfully navigate the recruitment process. And finally, we're going to finish with support in deciding if graduate schemes are right for you. So before we get started, you will notice that throughout the slides, there will be a lot of links to further resources. And in this way, the slides act as a workbook of sorts, as well as a presentation. So in order for us to send you the slides after the session, you'll need to register. So I'll give you a few moments now. If you could scan the QR code, or if you could just visit the bit.ly link that my colleague Sammy has put in the chat there, that would be great. A couple of you have sent through your student ID numbers, which is great. If you are able to register, please do via the bit.ly link. But if you're not able to, you can just send us your student ID or alumni ID, as this session is for students and recent graduates. So let's start with a brief overview of what graduate schemes are for anyone that isn't sure. So according to Prospects, graduate schemes are structured training programs run by an employer with the aim of developing future managers or leaders within their organization. And there are absolutely hundreds, if not thousands, of graduate schemes, but they do have, or they can have, a few common components. So they're often 1 to 2 years, but they can be up to 3 or 4 years. They're a way for employers to grow talent. They're often structured. Many include rotational placements, which allow participants access to multiple departments within the organisation. Because they're especially for graduates, they often contain training of some sort. And larger graduate schemes can have specific streams. So, for example, you could work for one organisation on the marketing strand of their graduate scheme, whereas another person could work for the same organisation but could be working within the finance department on the finance strand. So that's just an overview of what graduate schemes are. Graduate schemes can be known as different things, such as leadership programs to graduate fast tracks. So there's a couple of examples to give you an idea on the screen there of what to search for or look for or put into those vacancy job search sites. And remember, if we go through the slides very quickly, don't worry, you will receive the slides after the session is finished, but only if you have registered. So that's why it's really important that you register via the link that Sammy has just put in the chat. And we have a couple of people that have just joined us, so please do register. So let's get started and begin the A to Z of graduate schemes. So each letter will provide you with an insight into a particular area of a graduate scheme or a related element, such as the selection and recruitment process. I have taken liberties with some of the letters, so bear with me. Please hold any questions you have until the end. Your question might actually be answered as we go through the alphabet. And this session does have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end to enable you to ask any questions. You're more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can just put it in the chat and hopefully we'll get a chance to come to it. But basically, the session does provide a very comprehensive guide to help you prepare for graduate schemes, particularly graduate scheme applications. So application processes. So the application process for individual graduate schemes vary depending on the size of the organisation, for example, but all graduate schemes often have multiple stages that could take place over a couple of months, from September 2022 to March 2023, for example. So here are some of the stages of the recruitment and selection process for graduate schemes. So they usually start with an application that could be an application form, CV, or cover letter, or a combination of all three. Then they often include some form of psychometric tests, which could be sort of critical, verbal, numerical reasoning, situational judgment tests, game-based assessments, personality questionnaires. You could also have a telephone or an online interview. This is often with a HR representative, a human resources representative. And this may be followed by an assessment centre, which could be virtual or face-to-face. It could range from half a day to 2 days in length. And this includes different activities and tests, including an emphasis on group work. Then you'll have sort of a one-to-one interview or a panel interview with a senior colleague or colleagues. And finally, when you get through these stages, you get your offer. So not all graduate schemes will have all of these stages, and the ones that do may have them in different order, and they'll all have different timelines, but that's just an example of how the recruitment process could look. So a couple of top tips for each stage of the process. We'll cover more of these in more detail, but this is just a snapshot. So your application, if you're applying for a lot of graduate schemes, it's very easy to submit the same application. You can just copy and paste, but please don't do that, especially with graduate scheme recruiters. They see so many applications, it's very easy to spot a generic sort of copy and paste job. So do tailor your application to exactly what they're looking for. Psychometric tests. The best piece of advice for psychometric tests is to practice. So we've got lots of practice tests on our website, and I will provide the links to those later. And a lot of people are particularly nervous about the critical or numerical reasoning test within the psychometric test section of the recruitment process, and we do have links to help you with those as well. Even visiting the BBC website, the Math Centre website, just to sort of remind yourself of those you know, some of those numerical skills that you may have forgotten if you haven't perhaps studied mathematics since GCSE or equivalent. Online or telephone interviews, treat it with in the same way that you would a face-to-face interview, you know, with the same professionalism and formality as that sort of traditional interview. Even if they can't see, you know, if you're wearing your pajama bottoms instead of more professional attire, it's your frame of mind, and it's how it makes you feel, and so it's really important to treat it with the same sense of formality as you would a traditional interview. Assessment centres, the key focus of assessment centres is often group work. They want to see how you communicate and work in a team, and also crucially listening to your teammates. You don't have to be the loudest to perform very well at assessment centres, and actually being the loudest can often detract from your performance. Interview, again, prepare. So research the company thoroughly, look at the job description, look at the list of essential skills on the job description, and have some core examples. So context, action, result, and prepare some really good answers to these list of essential skills that could be asked, but also prepare some good questions at the end. You often think that when the panel says, do you have any questions for us, that signals the end of the interview, but actually they will assess you based on the questions that you provide as well. And a job offer, when you get to the stage, congratulations. Remember that you don't have to accept immediately. It's okay to ask for some time to think about it, but remember to communicate openly and don't take too long, because they may offer the position to someone else. B is for boosting your employability. So not just before applying, but also during the application process. During that process, you should be continuing to boost your employability alongside your graduate job search. And there's just five examples of ways in which you can do this while or before applying for graduate schemes. So firstly, do a skills audit. There's a sample audit on our website that is editable, and you can you can reflect on the skills you already have, how you can evidence those skills, and the skills that you may need to develop during the application process or before it. We do have a whole host of alumni skills stories that could be useful for inspiration. They have provided testimonials on the skills that they developed through their degree and how they helped them secure a graduate scheme or a graduate job, and also how those skills that they developed through their degree has helped them perform in their graduate job. Boost your skills through part-time work and volunteering. So you can use Career Connect to look for both of those opportunities, and current students can also look on Volunteer Hub for volunteering opportunities. And Career Connect really is great for also looking for summer internships and work shadowing experiences as well. Don't be afraid to approach local smaller employers for work shadowing experience. You can access the work experience bursary to help with costs, which can I think you can apply for up to £250 or £1,000 if you come from a widening participation background, to help cover the cost of accommodation and travel. You can also enhance your work experience or your CV or your skills by by completing a short online course at home or a virtual work experience opportunity. So we partnered with an organization called Forage, and they provide virtual work experience opportunities in areas like climate change, audit, software engineering, government, design and branding, and lots more. And finally, you can make your CV stand out by entering some sort of competition or applying for an award. If you're a graduate, just look out for the eligibility criteria, because many of these competitions are just for current students. Which leads us on to C, for competition. So graduate schemes can be very competitive. I'm sure that's the number one thing that you've heard. This means that graduates often have to apply for multiple graduate schemes and even reapply the following year if they were rejected. And the Institute of Student Employers, the ISE, ran a survey in 2021, and they surveyed their member employers, the employers that they represent in the UK. And those member employers reported receiving over 1.3 million applications for graduate jobs during 2021-2022, with each role receiving an average of 91 applications. That was a 17% increase on the previous year, so that'd be 2019-2020, and it's the highest number of applications per vacancy that we have, the ISE has on record. So of course, with this level of competition, you want to put your effort in, but it's important to have a plan B, because if you don't get on that graduate scheme that you want, what is your next plan? Is there another graduate scheme that you want to apply for? Are you applying for multiple at the same time? Are you also looking at graduate entry level positions as well as graduate schemes? If you don't get on the graduate scheme that you want right away, can you take a year out, get some professional office-based work experience via an internship or a graduate entry level role and apply the following year? It's very, very common, for graduates to apply, 1-2 years after graduation. Remember that you can't control the amount of applicants on your graduate scheme or schemes, but there are lots of things that you can control. How thoroughly you research the organisation, how you make the most of networking opportunities and getting insights from alumni, how you really do the work in finding out what experience and skills the employer is looking for and developing those particular skills, how well you practice for multiple stages in the recruitment process. If you reapply the following year, do you take on the feedback that the graduate scheme gave you the previous year and apply it for next year? And finally, making use of all the support available from the career service, which you can continue to access for up to 2 years after you finish your course. We'll cover that later, but please do reach out and use that support, because you don't have to go through this process alone. D is for deadlines. So many large graduate schemes open in the summer, autumn for an autumn start the following year. They may have closing dates as early as October, November. However, it is advisable to apply as early as possible, as some organisations will just fill places on an ongoing basis and close as soon as they're full. That's what's called a, they're recruiting on a rolling basis. You might see that sometimes. Other graduate schemes will open at different times and will hire at different times, but this is sort of the sort of typical route for big graduate schemes. The Bright Network has a very good list of some of the deadlines for 2023 graduate schemes, those that start in 2023, so the ones that you would be applying for around this time, but it isn't an exhaustive list. It doesn't include all of them. So do your own research. If there's some organisations that you really want to apply for, go on their company website and have a look. But I think the main thing to take from this is apply sooner rather than later, because you never know if they'll close a bit earlier if they recruit. So just while we're on the D for deadlines, this is an example of a typical graduate recruitment process. Please do check individual graduate schemes for details, because everyone will be slightly different. But this is an example of how some of the big corporates work. So, in the summertime, June 2022, for example, this year, the graduate scheme will open for applications. Then it would close sort of November, December. Then from December 2022 to May 2023, the selection process continues. So that could involve some of the stages that we talked about in the previous slide, the application process slide. So it could be psychometric tests, assessment centres, interviews, group interviews, online, video interviews, in-person interviews. It just depends. Because they have so many stages, they do take a while. So if it continues to May and June 2023, you could have been given an offer, and you could start your graduate scheme sort of August, September 2023, not 2021, sorry about that. So you could see that it could last most of the academic year. I'd say a lot of them will perhaps, if they start recruiting September, October time, you may get your job offer by sort of March time, but that's just an example. So E is for examples of graduate schemes. On the screen here are some examples of graduate schemes that University of Manchester graduates have entered before. There's a mixture of public and private sector, and a huge range of sizes and industries as well. Just a really small snapshot. E is for Oh yes, we've already covered. E is for graduate schemes. Examples of graduate schemes, they exist in lots of different sectors. They aren't limited to finance or professional services, which perhaps may be the first sectors that you think of when you consider graduate schemes. Lots of sectors have graduate schemes, from charities and not-for-profits like cancer research, Charity Works, the United Nations, to private organisations like Accenture, Bloomberg, Morgan Stanley, BBC, to public services like Teach First, the NHS, the UK government, and the prison service. So there's a couple of resources there to help you explore different graduate schemes by the sector that you're interested in. For those of you who have just joined, please do register so you get these slides, so you'll be able to access all of the links that we reference, because there's so many links in lots of the slides, because there's so much to cover. F is for fairs. October is careers fair season as well as graduate scheme season. It's a great time to explore graduate schemes and ask employers questions about their opportunities face to face. So, coming along to a fair, identifying on the list of exhibitors, which you'll find on Career Connect, which of the graduate scheme employers are going to be there, and making a list to yourself and saying, right, I'm going to go and talk to this graduate scheme employer. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. And then in the interview process, or during the interview process, you'll be able to say, I was speaking to one of your recruitment professionals at the University of Manchester STEM Careers Fair, for example. And I found out that the graduate scheme entails or involves this. This really appeals to me, because it's just being able to build that network. If you can, remember the name of the person and connect with them on LinkedIn afterwards too. So the STEM fair is taking place in October, 3 days in October, the 12th, 13th and 26th. 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. both days in the McD building. You can register on Career Connect. The list of exhibitors is live, and this is for anyone who is interested in science, tech, engineering or mathematics, so STEM areas. You can also come along to speak to large graduate employers hiring for humanities graduate schemes and opportunities in October, on the 18th and 19th of October. That's in Whitworth Hall. In the same way, register on Career Connect. It'll be 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on both days, and there'll be a whole host of employers that are advertising opportunities in marketing, HR, charity, consultancy, business services, design, social media, communications, absolutely loads. So definitely do register there if you're interested. So G is for grade requirements. Many graduate schemes expect a 2-1 or higher, especially in competitive or more traditional industries like finance or law. However, lots of top graduate scheme employers ask for a minimum of a 2-2 or above. So it's worth remembering that. And in fact, some of the UK's biggest sort of graduate scheme employers employ graduates with 2-2 degrees, including the big four. The big four accounting firms, which is Deloitte, EY, PwC and KPMG, Apple, Boots, Google, HMRC, John Lewis, Jaguar Land Rover, the Met Police, the RAF, the Army, Sky, Stagecoach. There's absolutely loads. So it is worth bearing in mind, check the eligibility criteria of the graduate scheme that you're applying for. But do remember that even some companies have removed degree classification requirements from their graduate job advertisements altogether. And they're more focused on attitude, work ethic, passion, learning mindsets, and transferable skills and experience. So just check with your particular graduate scheme. But if you are on course for a 2-2, or if you're a graduate and you have a 2-2, don't automatically exclude graduate schemes from your list of options. H is for help. So we have talked about this. There's lots of available help from the Career Service with lots of topics, like deciding if graduate schemes are right for you. So graduate schemes can be a great way to kickstart a very successful career, and they have lots of pros, but they're not the only way to have a successful career. There's lots of other alternatives, like graduate internships, graduate entry-level jobs, starting your own business, joining a startup, all of which can lead to a very successful and rewarding career. So on the screen here, you'll find some of the potential advantages and disadvantages of graduate schemes. These will depend on the organisation, the sector, and the graduate scheme. So not all of them will be applicable to all graduate schemes. And you will notice that some of them could be viewed as a pro or a con. The main thing here is thinking, what is important to you? If you don't know what's important to you in terms of your career, which is absolutely fine, think about the next 1 to 2 years. So do you want to grow professionally? Do you want a high salary? Do you want opportunities to travel? Do you want to stay in Manchester? Do you want to move home? Do you want to move abroad? Is there a particular skill you really want to learn? Do you want to have a good work-life balance? Do you want to live close to your friends or your family? Do you want real responsibility? Do you want to join an organisation with lots of peers at the same time? It's totally dependent on what you want, and what you want will be very different to perhaps what your friends want, but also it could be very different to what future you want out of a career. So just focus on what you want now. What do you want out of the next couple of years? So some resources to help you explore graduate schemes and the intricacies of the application process, just to see if it's right for you. We do have a couple of upcoming events as part of Graduate Schemes Week. Tomorrow we've got Meet the Employers graduate schemes, where we've got 6 graduate scheme employers coming. That's online tomorrow at lunch. And we also have a Meet the Graduates graduate scheme session, which is an alumni panel event on Wednesday evening, 5 to 6 p.m. UK time on Zoom. So definitely worth coming along to that. The employer session is good for asking specific questions about different graduate schemes. What are they looking for? What can you do to help your application or your interview stand out? But also asking other questions like, what locations do you hire in? What's the what sort of strands or opportunities do you have available? What opportunities for progression after the graduate scheme are available? Do you have any mentoring or buddy systems in place? Things like that. The alumni session will be totally invaluable in getting insights into particular graduate schemes. So what was it about that graduate scheme that alumni made them apply for it? What did they do outside of their degree or during their degree that helped them secure a place on that graduate scheme? What skills do they use on a day-to-day basis? What does their role entail? What do they do? All of these things will help you get an idea of what the graduate scheme is, decide if it's right for you, but also really, really help you with the application process and make you stand out by being able to insert those snippets of knowledge and awareness and insight into your application and your interviews. Okay, so we've got a couple of I's. So I is for impress the employers. We've got a couple of tips here on impressing graduate scheme recruiters at every stage of the recruitment process from alumni who are currently working on some of the biggest graduate schemes in the UK. So Hannah here is on the NHS Scientist Training Programme, and she talks about the importance of tailoring your application for every scheme that you apply for. It takes time, I can't lie, it does take time, but it's worth it because a recruiter can spot a generic application a mile off, and there's lots of support and help available to help you tailor your application for every graduate scheme or every graduate opportunity that you apply for. I won't, read them out, each of the paragraphs, but if you register, you'll receive the slides and you'll be able to read them in your own time. Aidan has 2 tips. So research what the recruiter is looking for and make sure that you demonstrate that you've done this research in your application and your interview. Don't be afraid of saying, oh, I know that your company culture is, I know that your values are, I know that your competitors are, I know that you've recently been awarded this piece of funding or awarded this accolade or being recognized for something. There's no substitute for practice, especially when it comes to psychometric tests and assessment centres, as Aidan said, and he is currently on the National Graduate Development Programme, which is the local government graduate scheme. Enrico says, get your applications in early. As we were already talking about, some graduate schemes recruit on a rolling basis and they might close a bit earlier than you think. He's on the HSB Global Tech Programme. He also talks about looking beyond the organization's culture and values and mission statement, but also what they're working on outside of their sector as well. Any bids that they've won, initiatives that they've been involved in. A quick Google search will introduce you to those. Zara is on Charity Works graduate scheme, and she talks about the importance of getting your interest in the organisation specifically across and demonstrating your curiosity for what they do. It could be, in that interview where they ask you, do you have any questions for the panel? You could ask some really good questions that really demonstrate your curiosity in what they do and your genuine interest and enthusiasm for the area. And she also talks about having specific STAR examples for each of the essential skills listed on the job description and preparing a few good questions to ask at the end. So STAR it stands for situation, task, action, result. And that's how you can frame and structure your interview questions and also application answers, interview answers and application answers as well. James is on the civil service fast stream, and he talks about the importance of gaining alumni insights from different graduate schemes and graduate employers. And he also reminds us of the importance of trying to enjoy the process. I know everything I've thrown at you so far, you may think, oh my goodness, this is quite stressful. But the more practice you get, the more confident you will be. And that's why it's important not to put all your eggs in one basket, for example, and applying for multiple opportunities. Because if nothing else, it will enable you to gain practice and experience and grow in that confidence. So J is for jobs after you graduate. This is a very common question. Lots of, what happens after the graduate scheme? Say the graduate scheme is 1 or 2 years. What happens after that? A lot of graduate schemes will offer you a permanent contract after your graduate scheme finishes, because they spend a lot of money on recruiting and training you, and graduate schemes are often used by employers as talent pipelines for future managers and leaders in the organisation. However, this isn't always guaranteed. So remember to read the organisation's recruitment website to find out what happens at the end of your graduate programme, or even ask at a recruitment event tomorrow if you come along to the to the Meet the Employers graduate scheme session. Ask them, what happens after the graduate scheme, how many stay on with the organisation, or if you go to one of the careers fairs, again, asking that question. If your career plans change during your graduate scheme, perhaps if you're not enjoying your graduate scheme or you want to try something else, you can leave. You will obviously have to work a notice period, or you can leave the graduate scheme after completion. Just be aware, if the organisation is paying you to complete professional qualifications or further study as part of this graduate scheme, you may have to repay some, if not all, of the study costs if you leave within a certain time frame. So it's just a good idea to read the recruitment website in more detail. This will be stated on your contract though, however, so you should be made aware of that. K is for keep going. So graduate schemes can equal fantastic rewards, but because they involve quite lengthy recruitment processes and they are competitive, resilience is key, although it's a key skill in every sort of graduate job search, whether you're applying for graduate schemes or graduate internships or entry-level roles. So there's a couple of alumni tips here on helping to maintain resilience. So Linny, who studied mechanical engineering with management, she talks about the importance of asking for feedback and actually acting on it. If you're not sure how to act on the feedback that the employer has given you, come to the career service, bring it to a careers meeting that you can book on Career Connect, and we can talk you through it and see how you can improve for next time. Mihaela, who studied electronic engineering, talks about the quality over quantity of applications. While you don't want to just apply for one and put all your hopes on one graduate scheme, you don't want to sort of blindly apply for lots of graduate schemes. You want to really tailor your applications and refine your applications and keep going. She said there's no magic trick to landing your graduate scheme, unfortunately, is a question of keeping going and resilience. And Shintao talks about the importance of resilience and endurance in general. He studied social research methods and statistics, and absolutely resilience and endurance are very useful skills in the graduate scheme recruitment process and in life. L is for the length of graduate schemes. So we've already said that typically they can be 1 to 2 years, but they can be longer, for example, 3 or 4 years, and this will always be listed on the job description, so don't worry about that. M is for some myths. So I've had to think here about some common myths that I hear among students and graduates about graduate schemes. So one of those is graduate schemes is the most common form of graduate employment. That's false. Less than 1 in 10 of graduates go on to graduate schemes. Graduate entry-level roles, which are normal jobs that you apply for directly with the organisation and that require a degree, therefore are graduate level, are much more popular. Graduate schemes will give me a high salary, not necessarily, so that's also false. While you may start on a higher salary, a lot of graduate schemes do advertise very good salaries. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes promotion and salary increases can be more prominent in smaller organisations because they're a bit more dynamic. So it's just something to be aware of. The next one is getting onto a graduate scheme is the best way to stay in Manchester after graduation, or sometimes I hear is the best way to go to London after graduation, to move to London. And absolutely not. So many graduate schemes, while of course they do have offices in Manchester and London, but the rise of remote work means that there's multiple hybrid and home working opportunities, which allows for a bit more flexibility in terms of location. And also there's lots of graduate entry level roles in and around Manchester and in and around London as well. So, definitely not the only way to stay in Manchester or to move to London. Graduate schemes are more for training than working. Oh my goodness, definitely not. So training is often an element of graduate schemes, of course it is, but you will have to carry out tasks and contribute to the organisation in return for your salary. So it is a real job in that sense. And finally, Another myth that I hear, the most important way I can ensure graduate scheme success is by getting a good grade. This is not true either. So grades can be important, and while lots of graduate schemes do ask for or do require a 2-1 or above, there is a move away from this practice. But regardless of whether they require 2-1 or above, or 2-2, or they don't have a grade specification, transferable skills, relevant experience, and a positive can-do attitude combined with that sort of genuine interest and passion for the work are essential components of graduate scheme success, definitely. So N is for narrative, or more specifically your self narrative. So how you talk about yourself will become very apparent to the recruiter through the graduate scheme recruitment process, and it's actually tested by employers across multiple stages. It could be something as simple as saying hello at a careers fair. It could be how you talk about yourself on your LinkedIn profile, your personal profile on your CV. If you have one of those, they tend to be 2 or 3 short lines at the top of your CV. More direct ways in which employers could assess this is on the application form or in the interview, where they say, tell me about your experience to date, or tell me about your time at university, or what has your journey like been so far, something like that. And also introductions and assessment centres as well, when you're introducing yourself not only to the employer but also to the other candidates at the assessment centre. All of these things give an insight into how you talk about yourself and present yourself. So let's just have a look at this question. A very common interview question, particularly, tell me a bit about yourself. A lot of people are a bit wary of that question because you don't know how long it's going to be, you don't know what to include and what not to include, you don't really know what they're looking for. But basically, the employer is asking this to see how you talk about yourself, your personal branding, how you present yourself, but also to give them a flavour of how you might fit into the graduate scheme or the role. And it's also just a bit of an icebreaker as well, particularly in the interview process. So if you break that down into 2 parts, the first part, where are you now? Talk about any personal achievements, any standout skills that you have, any experience you've gained that they're looking for example. This could be, your degree from the University of Manchester. It could be any relevant volunteering or work experience. It could be any skills that you have that you can demonstrate and give evidence for that they're specifically looking for, as stated on the job description. It could be any awards that you've won at university, or any extracurricular positions that you've held. And then the second part is, where do you want to go? So does your professional ambitions align with the organization's values and ambitions? And this is your opportunity to show how much research you've done in the organization and your knowledge of the company. So there's a lot to fill in there. Keep it brief. If they ask it in an application form, there's usually a word limit to stick within. If it's an in-person meeting, say if you meet somebody at a careers fair, use your elevator pitch, which is usually about 60 seconds, where you tell them a bit about yourself. And if they ask it in an interview, keep it to maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but definitely no longer than 5 minutes. Although you'll find that it can be difficult to talk for 2-3 full minutes. So you should be able to keep it within that time. Just keep it relevant. Think, you wouldn't answer that question in the same way to all of the graduate schemes or employers that you're applying for. You really have to tailor it to what they're looking for. Okay, so O is for ongoing support. So the career service is here to help you now and for 2 years after you finish your degree. Not everyone knows that. Obviously, if there's any recent graduates on this call, you will know that. But for final year students or current students, remember that you can access everything you were able to as a student as a graduate. And that includes coming to careers fairs, events, booking appointments, going on Career Connect to search for vacancies, using CareerSet to check your CV and your cover letter, doing the online self-guided modules, the pathways, practicing video interviews on shortlist.me, absolutely loads. So definitely do continue to use that support that's available to you. And also a good way to sort of keep up to date with that support is by joining the University of Manchester Recent Graduate Careers Network if you have a LinkedIn profile. So it launched a couple of months ago, and it's for all final year students and recent graduates from the University of Manchester. It's an opportunity to connect with each other, to find out about different opportunities, career service events, vacancies, etc. And also just a way to keep in touch with the University of Manchester as well, and to continue to access that support service. So Sammy has just put a link in the chat to the graduate pages of our website to find out a bit more about ongoing support, and she'll also put a link in to the University of Manchester Recent Careers Graduate Careers Network that you can join. P is for practice. Look at this slide, it's absolutely overloaded with links, so please remember to register. Those of you who have been here from the start will be sick of me saying this, but there have been a couple of people that have come in late, so I'm just saying it for your benefit. And apologies to everyone that's heard me say it quite a lot. So practice is essential for such a competitive process, both the recruitment in general, but also the individual stages. So I know I've said this a lot as well, but don't put all your eggs in one basket and just apply for one graduate scheme if you really do want to get on a graduate scheme. You know, if you want a graduate scheme, that is your main ambition, don't just apply for one. So on screen are some of the ways in which we can help you practice for each step of the recruitment process. So for applications, there's lots of online resources. You can use CareerSet, which is an automatic CV and cover letter checker. And you can also use it to cross-reference your CV and your cover letter to particular graduate scheme descriptions or job descriptions, so it can give you feedback on how to further tailor your CV. We offer 20-minute CV review appointments where you can get an application advisor to look over your CV, and also 20-minute application advice appointments where an application advisor can look over your CV, your cover letter, your application form, your LinkedIn profile, personal statements for further study, things like that. We've also got a pathway on Career Connect, all about CVs, cover letters and applications. You may not be able to see the CV review and application advice appointments until you've completed this pathway. It takes about 20 minutes and it's really useful to give you sort of that basic understanding of what to get, what should be included in your application, CVs and cover letters. Psychometric tests, again, lots of online support. You can access free practice tests via Graduates First. As part of Graduate Schemes Week, we do have a psychometric test session run by my colleague Louise on Thursday. That's 5 to 6 p.m. You can register for that if you're a bit unsure about psychometric tests. We've got, I think that's a blog article on how to perform better in psychometric tests. And we also have a psychometric test pathway. Again, that's that self-guided module on Career Connect too. Assessment centres, so again, lots of online support and resources. We've got a mock virtual assessment centre on Wednesday. It's online. All the places are full at the minute. There is a long waiting list, so join the waiting list, because you never know, some people might cancel their place closer to the time if they can't make it anymore, or they've got different commitments, and then that will mean that places are opened up. So if you're not able to register for that, don't worry, there will be similar sessions. There's a blog article there on preparing for online assessment centres specifically, and another pathway on assessment centres. And finally, interviews. Again, loads of online support and reading. You can book 30-minute practice interview sessions, one every 30 days through Career Connect, where the careers consultant takes the form of the interviewer and asks you questions based on your CV, your cover letter, your application and the job description. You can use Shortlist Me for free virtual interview practice. We've also got a session on Friday. It's an in-person session in University Place, preparing for a graduate interview, where an employer will be coming and we'll be doing some role play on what makes a good interviewee and good interview answers. Again, places are limited. Sign up for the waiting list if it's all full, which I think it is. We've got an interview pathway, and we've also got quite a lot of resources on our on the Career Service blog on interviews, but I've just linked to one example, 5 interview mistakes and how to avoid them. So Q is quality over quantity. So to echo what our alum Michaela said, don't blindly apply for any and all graduate schemes that you see. It's a waste of your time because the employers can easily see that you've copied and pasted a generic application. But also it's a waste of your time as well. You know, it's a lengthy process. You don't want to apply for for hundreds of them. You'll be absolutely exhausted, and there's no way that you'll be able to prioritize quality over quantity. The key is to tailor each application and prepare for each interview individually. So you can do this by showing your interest and knowledge in that company specifically, showing a passion for their work. Their work could be very different to another organization, so that proves to the recruiter that you have researched their company and you're applying for their company in particular. Definitely get across your enthusiasm for the role. Have a look at the job description, look at the specific job responsibilities that will form a part of the graduate scheme description, and talk about, how you would enjoy these particular responsibilities and opportunities, and why you'd be good at them, what you could bring to the team, but also what you could learn from them. And finally, make sure that you've not only stated, but you've demonstrated that you have every single one of the essential skills listed on the job description, or essential attributes listed on the job description, and desirable if you have them. R is for research. We've talked a lot about research in the company, but how do you actually do that? So have a look at the website. That's your first port of call. It's great for finding out a bit more about values, company culture, mission statements, as well as upcoming networking events and opportunities. Having a look at their social media as well. Great for that's great for having a look at what they're doing in real time, any current projects that they're working on or recent accolades that they've been awarded. News articles, what's been happening in the press, very good for commercial awareness and how to understand the organization and how it operates in a global context. Again, it could just be a question of Googling them and seeing what news articles have been floated about recently. Events, the careers fairs, the employer panels, talking to these recruiters, finding out exactly what they're looking for, getting all of your questions answered. What can you do to make you stand out? What is their favorite thing about working at the organization, for example? That could help you give you an insight into how the organization operates and what it's like to be an employee there. Alumni panel events, like the one we're having this week is part of graduate scheme session, but there's lots of alumni panels, sector specific ones throughout the semester. They can provide really useful insider information about what a graduate scheme is like, and you can ask them what they did during the application process that really helped them secure a place on that graduate scheme. And finally, websites like Glassdoor and the Student Room can be really good for sort of harvesting more information and researching the organisation and the graduate scheme. S is for start dates. So this will very much depend. A lot of graduate schemes are recruiting now for an August/September 2023 start, but some graduate schemes have multiple entry points. It could be January, April, September. It's worth asking if you want to start a bit later or a bit earlier. Ask the question if you get offered the role and see what happens. But a lot of this will be mentioned in the graduate scheme description or on their company website. T is for training. So graduate schemes usually offer a combination of on-the-job learning and some form of formal external or residential training. So they may also include the opportunity to study for a professional qualification during normal working hours. So it could be the ACCA if you're working in accounting, or the CIM within marketing. There's a couple of examples on the screen about the kinds of qualifications that you could have the opportunity to work towards while on a small sample of graduate schemes. Certainly not exhaustive, but just to give you an idea of the types of extra qualifications that you could gain. So Teach First offers a postgrad diploma in education and leadership. The NHS Graduate Management Training Scheme, the General Management strand, you can get a postgraduate diploma in healthcare leadership from the University of Birmingham. And the NHS Scientist Training Programme, you can study for a master's in your chosen specialism, whatever it may be. And for example, Balfour Beatty's business graduate scheme, they will pay for you to undertake relevant professional qualifications depending on the area that you're working in. It could be, learning and development, marketing, finance, facilities management. Just a couple of examples. U is for understanding what employers are looking for and articulating it. Employers will tell you exactly what they're looking for based on the, judging by the person specification, the job description on their website, through events and fairs, and by talking to alumni as well, you can get an insight. But you really need to demonstrate at every stage of the recruitment process that you have what they're looking for. So let's look at this. So it's FTI's Consulting Strategic Management Graduate Scheme. It closes on the 18th of November, or it did when I created this presentation, so it's worth double checking just in case that's changed. So here they've clearly listed exactly what they're looking for. This particular graduate scheme is looking for a 2-1 or above, and they're looking for a list of skills. So let's identify one of those, or a couple of them: strong detail orientation, time management, and self-organization. So how can you articulate that? What did you do? And that's really important if you want to be successful. So let's have a look here. Here's an example of how you can evidence that in a job description or interview. The company is looking for attention to detail. So what did you do? Talk about your role, your responsibilities. So basically what everyone will have in common in some way is they've completed a final year project or dissertation in some form. If you break that down, what did you actually do? So it involved researching different sources, forming arguments, persuading, persuasive writing, verbal communication, referencing, so a lot of attention to detail there, meeting different deadlines. Remember to add specifics, quantifiable information that demonstrates the impact of the information of what you did. It really adds credibility to your experience. So instead of just saying, you know, I completed a dissertation, you know, conducted independent research, analysing over 20 historical sources and collating evidence to support an 8,000-word dissertation, edited an accompanying 5,000-word bibliography. That's just an example. It's just an example. Don't just leave it there. A lot of people just leave it there. Now you need to really spell it out for them. What did that experience give you that enables you to be the ideal candidate for this graduate scheme or the position that you're applying for? Really spell it out for them. They have a lot of applications to look at. These are just an example of some of the skills that you may have gained through your dissertation or final year project, or if you're a final year student, that you will gain. And attention to detail is there highlighted through that list, on that list. Values. V is for values. It's important that your values match the organization's values. So knowing what you want and what is important to you will help you select a graduate job or a graduate scheme that is right for you. So on the screen here, there are 18 values that are often cited by new graduates entering the workforce. You'll find that they fall into a few major categories, including sort of learning and professional development, pay and recognition, workplace culture, organizational values, and the nature of the work itself. So can I ask that you just have a look and just pick one of those values that is important to you right now and put it in the chat. You can either send it to me as a a direct message, or you can send it to everyone. You will have more than one in real life, and what you want now could be very different to what you want next year. But just focus on now. When you're looking at graduate schemes and you're deciding which graduate schemes you want to apply for, what's one of the main things that you're looking for? Opportunity to make a difference, absolutely, and that is very important for a lot of people. Ethical workplace, high salary and being challenged. Ethical workplace, work-life balance, being challenged. Networking, work-life balance, challenge. Ethical workplace, work-life balance, that's very popular, being challenged. Progression and promotion, fantastic. Work-life balance, again, variety of work, real responsibility, professional growth, networking, reasonable salary, variety of work has come up a good few times there. That's very important. Progression and promotion, again, autonomy, having your own responsibility and purpose, being challenged. Again, variety of work, doing lots of different things, learning lots of different skills, being exposed to lots of different ways of working. Organization, reputation, progression, job satisfaction, fantastic. There are some really, really good examples there. Thank you for taking the time to reflect on what is important to you at the moment. keep that close. You know, when you're exploring graduate schemes and there's so many out there and you think, gosh, how do I decide which one's right for me? Keep that value close. Will that allow you to be able to sort of fulfill that value? Does that graduate scheme, that organisation match what you are looking for right now? And please do remember, you know, this is what you want right now. Don't worry if what you want out of a graduate job or life is you know, changes after 1 or 2 years. That's absolutely fine, but that's what's important to you now, and that's what you want to make sure it plays a part in your graduate scheme opportunity or the graduate scheme of your choice. And Manahill, the 2018 graduate, talks about the importance of just finding a place that suits you, at least for the time being. If you've tried it and you've given it a really good go and it doesn't match your values anymore, you don't enjoy it, you're not learning for it, then you can move on. Yeah, really doing that value work will help you select a good opportunity that matches you. W, where to find opportunities. There's 4 main areas where you can find graduate scheme opportunities. The first is graduate job search websites like Career Connect, Prospects, Target Jobs. They advertise graduate level jobs and schemes. The second is sector-specific websites. So we've got a list of over 200 targeted graduate job search websites by sector. So for example, if you're interested in marketing, Bubble Jobs can be very good. Also professional body websites like the Chartered Institute of Marketing could also have some opportunities. Location specific websites, nobody actually said in their list of values that the location is one of them, but I'm sure there are people where location is really important. If you have a particular place in mind, try looking at Passport Career, which gives you free access to country profiles and job hunting information for up to, well, over 80 countries. And also Prospects Country Guides can give you some really good information on you know, the labour markets in different countries. And finally, employer websites and their social media, specifically, they might you know, advertise through there. This is where I've taken some liberties. X is for experience. Please bear with me, it's very, very difficult to think of an X. But if we think back to our example, always talk about what you've done that makes you a great candidate for the role that you're applying for. That's what they want to see. There's no use in saying, oh, you know, I was a peer mentor, if you don't explain, these are the skills that I have developed through this peer mentoring opportunity. And they're the skills that you're looking for. I have what you're looking for. So again, thinking back to our example there, our example was about dissertation or final year project. We added the specifics and we talked about the skills, the attention to detail. Think about your role, what you were, activity, which is what you did, what were your specific responsibilities, and remember to include as much quantifiable information as possible, and skill, what did this experience give you, and make sure it's something that they're looking for, something listed on the job description. So how to write about this experience on your CV and application forms. Think about the part A and part B. Every bullet point on your CV should have 2 parts. Part A, what you did, part B, what you gained. So for example, you know, part A, if you're a sales assistant, it's a part-time job, advised up to 15 customers per day on relevant products for their needs, utilizing detailed technical knowledge. Say you worked at the Apple store, for example. So you've started with a strong active verb, advise, and you've included quantifiable information. Part B, what did you gain? Could be as simple as strengthening my communication skills or my commercial awareness or whatever it is. Another example from extracurricular life could be that you're a social secretary for a society. Your part A, what did you do? For example, successfully negotiated a discount with the venue for the summer ball, saving £400. What did you gain? Enhancing my commercial awareness. You quantified, you used active verbs, and you included your part A and your part B. So they're really strong bullet points. Talk about your experience in interviews. So there we talked about how to talk about it on CVs and application forms. Now we're talking about how to really demonstrate your experience in interviews. And this is the STAR technique. So situation, what was a situation? What was the situation? Keep it brief, but be specific. T is for task. What was the specific task that you needed to achieve? A is for action. What did you do? What was your role? What actions did you take? Again, use that active language. They're not interested in what the team did. They're interested in what you personally did. R is result. What was the outcome? What did you achieve? What was improved, qualified, quantify? And another R that's sometimes left off, but I think really does set candidates apart, is that R for reflection. What did you learn from the experience? You know, what skill did you enhance? What would you do differently next time? So a bit of an example from an interview. So say they're looking for problem solving skills and teamwork. They said, tell us about a time when you had to solve a problem as part of a team. So you think to yourself, if they ask you that, okay, what are they asking for? What are they assessing? Problem solving skills and teamwork. So you want to make sure that in your interview answer, you've talked about each of those. Situation. So perhaps you were elected a member of your residents association at Halls in your first year. You maybe acted, include that quantifiable information and specifically about what you did. You acted as environmental coordinator for 8 months, working alongside a team of 8 other residents. But there was a resident in Halls that complained to you as the environmental coordinator that the Halls did not recycle. So what was your task? Your task was to really encourage Halls management to implement recycling because you've received this complaint, and also your environmental coordinator. That's something that's important to your role. What was your action specifically? So perhaps you reassured the resident that you will discuss it with the RA, the Residents Association. You maybe came to the Residents Association meeting with a plan and you collaborated with your team members to sort of refine that plan. You listened to other perspectives, you delegated actions, you were flexible and adaptable. And then maybe when you had that plan, you said, okay, I'm going to arrange a meeting with management to discuss recycling. So you devised your argument, you practiced it with your teammates, you maybe delegated tasks, like perhaps one teammate could bring quotes for how much recycling bins for each of the flats could cost. Another maybe arranged a resident petition which received maybe 100 signatures. You want to specify that. What was the result? The result could be that you successfully implemented recycling procedure for Halls with 20 flats of about 200 students in total. And you also worked with the marketing coordinator in the Residents Association to develop a promotional campaign to really advertise this achievement and to encourage residents to recycle. And then R, your reflection. Perhaps this could have taught you the importance of listening to different perspectives and preparing effectively before meetings. Example. So you want to get in there how you solved a problem, how you listen to other perspectives as part of a team and you move forward as part of a team, but how you used your initiative and your delegation skills, your communication skills, your leadership skills, your initiative to really solve that problem in a creative and effective and efficient way. That's just an example. Everyone's examples will be slightly different. Why is yes? You might have a few rejections. That's very, very normal. Very few people get accepted to the first job that they apply for, whether it's a graduate scheme or not. But remember, throughout the process, you only need one yes. You're more likely to get a yes if you apply for multiple schemes, as we said, but please remember quality over quantity. One way, you might be thinking, how does the spreadsheet relate to that? But one way I think could be quite good is to create a spreadsheet that can help you track your graduate scheme application process if you're applying for more than one, and you can personalize it to suit. So you could just create this yourself on a Google sheet or an Excel spreadsheet, and the organization name, the graduate scheme, the strand of the graduate scheme if applicable, what you have to do to apply, when's the deadline, when you've submitted it, is there psychometric tests, how many are there, what exactly are there, how many have you done, how many do you still need to do, when do you need to do them by? Does it include assessment centre? Yes or no? Does it include an interview? Likely to be yes. And any notes, remember, oh yes, I did talk to that recruiter for that organisation at the STEM fair or the Autumn Careers Fair, or yes, to prepare for an interview, I did book a practice interview session with a careers consultant. And keep note of that. That will it should keep you motivated as well, because if you apply for more than one, there's more chances that if it's quality over quantity, you will get a yes. But, because there's multiple recruitment stages, you might lose track. So you want to be organised and to make life a bit easier for yourself. Z is for zigzag, again, liberties. So, but there is sort of an important message behind this slide. Your career is not going to be a straight line. If you choose to do a graduate scheme, and you're successful, you don't necessarily have to stay with that company forever. And also, if you don't get in this year, there's nothing stopping you from applying again next year, depending on the eligibility criteria. Or you may never choose to go on a graduate scheme. You could apply for them, not get anything, and get a graduate internship or a graduate level job instead. Instead, it's about that growth mindset. So focus on opportunities that will enhance your skills, expand your network. Look at perhaps any failures or rejections as a way of redirecting your efforts and your focus. Being flexible and adaptable is so important. So having a plan A, B, C, etc. And remember that your professional identity will change over time, as will what you want out of work and life. It's dynamic, it's not static or stagnant. If you're struggling with this, because it can be a tough thing to get your head around when you're balancing a lot of things, like your final year, trying to get the best grade that you can, maybe extracurriculars, part-time work, volunteering, and then also the graduate scheme recruitment process, come and talk to us. Book a 30-minute guidance appointment with either myself or another careers consultant. We can have a chat through your concerns, and this is what we're here for, to help you. So please do get in touch. But just an example of how careers in the olden days used to be straight line. You graduated at 21, you started with, on a graduate scheme with company A, for example, around 21, 22, you got promoted, your mid-20s, early 30s to your first line management position. Maybe in your 40s, 50s, you were made a senior manager position or a partner. So that was, again, another promotion, all with the same organization. And then you were able to happily retire at 60 or 65 from the same organization. So careers in the olden days, a lot of them were loyal to a lot of the career pathways were loyal to the same employer and stayed within the same sector. An example of how they look now is completely different. The notion of a career ladder is totally out of date and it's not relevant anymore. Instead, careers are more like a portfolio of professional experiences. Each new experience you gain will give you new skills, new knowledge, and this will prompt you to continue either on the same career path if you're enjoying it and you're getting a lot out of it, or try something completely new. And you can also blend those experiences, freelancing while volunteering, working part-time for an organization while running your own consultancy part-time, for example. An example of how they may look now: different organizations, different sectors, further study at different stages, career break, consultancy part-time, and really that flexibility. So I'm just conscious of time. I'm going to run through further support and resources very quickly, and then I'm going to answer some questions. So this is the first event of Graduate Schemes Week. We've got lots of other events throughout the week designed to help you explore and apply for graduate schemes that you can that you can register for. Next week, it's really busy at the minute. Next week is Skills Week, and this is designed to help you understand, articulate, and develop your skills. And I think this complements Graduate Schemes Week very well, because the graduate scheme recruitment process demands a lot of self-awareness and ability to articulate those skills and those strengths. So definitely come along to some of those sessions if you're able to. 15 months after you finish your course, you may be there, you may not be there yet, you will be contacted by an organisation called HESA to complete the Graduate Outcomes Survey. It's the largest annual social survey in the UK. It takes about 10 minutes to complete, and there's lots of reasons to take part. It allows you to give feedback on your course. It helps policymakers make decisions about higher education. It helps the university to improve and promote our courses. It helps the career service to tailor and adapt our support. You'll receive an email closer to the time, but just remember to keep your email details up to date when you graduate. And stay connected. The best way to stay up to date with opportunities, events, and support is to follow us on social media. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And just remember that, we know the career service here, we know that not everyone has had the same experience of careers, information, advice, and guidance, or recruitment processes as well. And we're here to offer you impartial advice, whoever you are, however you identify. Have a look at our equality, diversity, and inclusion pages on our website for more information. For example, we offer 60-minute appointments for anyone with a disability or health condition, and we also have ring-fenced opportunities for certain groups as well. So definitely have a look. Oh my goodness, let's stop for a breath now. So thank you so much for attending today's session. It was a long one. I threw loads of information at you. So, thank you for staying with me. I'd really appreciate, before we move on to questions, if you wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes just to give us some feedback. It takes about couple of seconds just to click a smiley face. Sammy will put the link to the feedback form in the chat, and it will ask for the event name. If you just say like A to Z grad schemes and present name. I'm Jenny. I don't even know if I introduced myself at the start there, I'm sorry, but I hope you find it really helpful. I am going to move on to questions now. I'm going to stop recording for questions so you're able to answer them freely. But thank you, sorry, you're able to ask them freely, but thank you so much for staying with me. If we don't get around to your questions or you have to leave, don't worry. There's 3 different ways in which you can access support and get questions via our live web chat. You can raise a query in Career Connect, or if you're on campus, you can pop along to the first floor of University Place in the atrium where we are as well. So thank you so much. And have a lovely afternoon. I hope to see some of you at some other events and fairs as well.